Hello and welcome. The California Department of Education has developed the Promoting Equitable Access to Teachers program, PEAT or PEAT, to assist local educational agencies such as school districts in identifying and addressing local disparities or equity gaps in how teachers are assigned. This is the third video in the PEAT video series. Please be sure to view videos 1 and 2 on the PEAT webpage for additional information. Video 1 provides an overview of the PEAT program, and 2 discusses definitions for ineffective, out-of-field, and inexperienced teachers. This video will primarily provide instruction for the nuts and bolts of data analysis. But before we dive in, let's begin with our purpose: to provide equity for our students. To address equity challenges in school systems and at school sites, there are many guides. One excellent recent California resource is the Ways to Equity Playbook, which can be found via the Santa Clara County Office of Education's Inclusion Collaborative, as well as through the shortcut tinyurl.com/W2EPB. From that guide, here are 2 quotes to ground us in an equity approach to data work. To change the system, you first have to see the system in an honest way. And bringing together diverse stakeholders to explore the data and make decisions based on the data informs the future of equity at your site. PEAT guides and supports LEAs to approach educator assignment with an equity mindset, to build equity leadership and stakeholder teams, to collect and analyze the appropriate data, to engage stakeholders for a robust root cause analysis, and to work with stakeholders to consider various strategies to address disparities. The PEAT webpage, as well as the next videos in this series, include further guidance and resources on those important topics. In order to conduct the initial equity data analysis and make the first determination of whether equity gaps exist, the equity leadership team and stakeholders need 5 specific types of data. The first 2 types required fall under the student category. LEAs will report the proportion of low-income students and minority students, or students of color, at each school site. Under the teacher category, 3 types of data are required. LEAs will report the proportion of ineffective, sometimes called misassigned, out of field, and inexperienced teachers at each school site. A teacher may fall into more than one category for all or part of their assignment. Data for all categories may be found locally via LEA's internal data systems. Human resources departments are typically a good source for LEA data on the teacher categories. Many departments, as well as CalPAD's technician staff, will have reports for data on the student categories, since these data are used for many critical reporting functions, such as school plans for student achievement, or SPSAs. It is imperative that each LEA, excluding charters and single school districts, conduct an equity gap analysis. You'll be comparing like schools, for example, elementary to elementary schools, to answer the following 3 questions that arise from the requirements of the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. Are minority or low-income students taught at higher rates than other students by the following: ineffective teachers, out-of-field teachers, or inexperienced teachers? In addition to this video, detailed guidance for data analysis can be found via the California Department of Education's PEAT webpage at www.cde.ca.gov/pd/ee/peat.asp and the CDE's Local Control and Accountability Addendum Criteria and Guidance webpage at cde.ca.gov/pd/ee/edequity-lcap-addendum.asp. The first part of the CDE's guidance requires that an LEA describe its process for identifying disparities that result in low-income and minority students being taught at higher rates than other students by inexperienced teachers, out-of-field teachers, or ineffective teachers. The LEA must include a thorough explanation of which data it used for the analysis. If other stakeholders or monitoring authorities want to recreate the analysis, they need to know where and how to find the same data. With data in hand, the next 2 portions of guidance are to describe the distribution of teacher assignments across comparable school sites. Then, describe how the distribution of teachers from each category affects low-income students in particular, and students of color in particular. Description here requires that an LEA paint a picture of what the data show about these teacher assignments. When you describe the distribution, include the key summary statistics, such as the average number of inexperienced teachers per school site in the district and the range of inexperienced teachers per school site in the district. Now, we will demonstrate this type of analysis. In the following examples, we'll analyze data from the high schools of a fictitious school district, Altapasa Unified School District. We will review 3 of the key data categories from each of the district's 5 high schools. For the first example, our data will be inexperienced teachers and students of color. In the second example, the data will again be inexperienced teachers, but this time paired with low-income students. The examples in this video show 1/3 of the analysis that must be done to investigate an LEA's possible disparities. As a reminder, in order to complete the analysis, an LEA must also address how the distribution of teachers in the out-of-field and ineffective categories affect students of color, as well as low-income students. However, we will not address those in this video. For your convenience, a step-by-step companion document about this analysis is available next to the link for this video on the PEAT video series webpage. More details about PEAT resources follow at the end of this video. In Altapasa Unified, there are over 30 schools, including 5 traditional high schools. For the analysis of inexperienced teachers and how they're assigned to students of color, we did the following. Divided each school site's total number of students of color by the total number of students to derive the percentage of the student body who are students of color. In the case of Pfeiffer High School, for example, 904 of the students, 1,643 students, are students of color and do not identify as white. Dividing those figures, we find that Pfeiffer High School has approximately 55% students of color. Next, we did some similar division. We found the total number of inexperienced teachers for each campus and divided that by the total number of teachers. At Pfeiffer High School, 2 of 36 teachers were inexperienced, and thus 5.6% of the school's teacher staff are inexperienced. These are our data for the rest of the high schools. Miriam has 80.3% students of color and 10% inexperienced teachers. Caceres Memorial has 62.3% students of color and 8.3% inexperienced teachers. Muir High School has 69.8% students of color and 18.8% inexperienced teachers. And Matamoros High School has 92.7% students of color and 34.4% inexperienced teachers. Now that we have the key data points to think about, how the schools compare to each other, we'll organize the schools in ascending order of the proportion of students of color. Once we order the schools in this way, we see a similar trend when we look at the proportion of the teaching staff who are inexperienced. With the exception of one school, as the percentage of students of color rises, so does the percentage of inexperienced teachers. A statistical term for this pattern is a positive correlation. These data appear to show a clear disparity, i.e., an equity gap. In this case, for the students of color in Altapasa Unified's high schools. An equity gap must be investigated further, and that investigation will be the subject of 2 of the next videos in this series on the topics of stakeholder engagement and root cause analysis. Some key statistics for the LEA to note in our example are the range. Pfeiffer High School has 5.6% versus Matamoros High School's 34.4% inexperienced teachers, and the fact that at the campus with the highest proportion of students of color, over 1/3 of teachers have 2 or fewer years of experience. Now let's do another analysis, this time seeing how the pattern of inexperienced teacher assignments affects low-income students at the same schools. We use the same method, derive the percentage of the student body who are low income. In the case of Pfeiffer High School, for example, 677 of the school's 1,643 students are low income. Pfeiffer has approximately 41.2% low income students, and as before, 5.6% inexperienced teachers. We don't need to recalculate the inexperienced teachers for each site since we already have those figures. This is our data for the rest of the high schools. Caceres Memorial has 38.9% low income students. Matamoros has 59.4%. Muir has 73.0%, and Miriam has 89.5% low-income students. Now, we organize the schools in ascending order by the proportion of low-income students. Once we order the schools in this way, we note that these data patterns differ from those for students of color. As the percentage of low-income students rises, the percentage of inexperienced teachers does not also rise. In other words, there is not a clear positive correlation. While no obvious pattern of inequity emerges across all 5 sites, this analysis highlights a concerning statistic for the district's low-income students. The 2 schools with the smallest proportions of low-income students also have the smallest proportions of inexperienced teachers. These data are striking. Caceres and Pfeiffer have much lower percentages of low-income students than the other schools. This contrast, uncovered by the data, merits further investigation with root cause analysis and stakeholder engagement. A note about continuation high schools and other alternative settings. While often not comparable to traditional high schools due to significant curriculum and program variation, personnel assignment patterns and student demographics at these alternative setting schools should be considered in any LEA's strategic planning and equity analyses. Now that we've finished some practice with analysis, we'd like to remind you that PEAT provides information to all stakeholders and specifically provides support to LEAs for the following activities: engaging stakeholders, analyzing equity data, conducting a root cause analysis, addressing retention, recruitment, and diversification, incorporating equity data into LEA plans, and the PEAT webpage at www.cde.ca.gov/pd/ee/peat.asp has many resources. This video and related resources are located on the PEAT video series page at www.cde.ca.gov/pd/ee/peatvideos.asp. Please feel free to contact PEAT, the Promoting Equitable Access to Teachers program. Kristen Cruz Allen, Tara Bennett Brown, and many other staff in the Teacher and Leader Policy Office will be happy to assist. We are in the Educator Excellence and Equity Division and can be reached by email at tlpo@cde.ca.gov and by phone 916-445-7331. Thank you for your attention to quality data and, most importantly, for your efforts to create equitable educational opportunities for California's students. Take care.